to go back to the recording, go through the slides, and just pause when you need to. So the recording has started. For those of you that do not know me, I'm Laurel Marion. I'm the technology consultant at the Gallaudet ESC. I have been in education for 35 years and mostly technology. And so my passion is sharing new technology with our area teachers and students. I have with me today Katie Kilgore, and she is the adolescent literacy specialist at the ESC. And I will let her tell more about herself.
Sure. So I know a couple people in the call. I'm excited to be here today joining Laurel to talk about Diffit. My role at the ESC is really to support, science of reading and structured literacy practices throughout Southeast Ohio. And so that's kind of the lens that I'm going to be looking through today.
And we are excited that Katie is with us, sharing all of her knowledge. All right, so let's look at what we're going today. First of all, I've shared your slides in the chat. You can also use the slideshow to grab the slides. We are going to look at Diffit, and Diffit is an AI tool for creating leveled instructional resources from articles, videos, whatever content you have. I will walk you through all of the things that you can do with Diffit. If you want to follow along with me, there is the web address. It is also in the chat. And so we are going to learn what Diffit does. We're going to generate some resources. I'm going to show you how to customize everything, and then some examples of how teachers can use Diffit and Katie's input on how it affects the science of reading. I'm not very good at looking at the chat. So again, it's a small group. So just unmute your mic and ask a question. And Katie will probably try to look at the chat for me. So let's look at what Diffit does. So whatever you're teaching, they have it covered. So you can use your existing curriculum to generate content, or you can generate content from scratch with real cited resources. You can customize by grade level, language. So, we have had an influx of Spanish speaking students in our area. So if you need to translate something to Spanish. So let's just take a look at the customization. So you can instantly re-level text, customize your vocabulary questions or vocabulary. You can add questions at different DOK levels, translate, and a lot more. What it's going to give you, their term is just right. So it is going to give you just right activities of high quality student ready exports. So what can you export all of these resources to? You can export them to Google Slides, you can print them, you can put them in a Google form for an instant feedback quiz, a Google Doc, you can post straight to Google Classroom. Most of us don't use PowerPoint and Word, but it will export to those as well. So if you want to follow along, you would head to diffit.me. You're going to just log in with Google, and we're going to start creating resources. From this point on, I am not going to have my slides showing, although I'm following the slides in the right order, if that makes sense. So I'm going to demonstrate, but if you're going through just looking at the slides with me, they do go in the right order. So I'm going to hop over to the Diffit site. And this is what the dashboard looks like. And then I am going to walk you through all of the ways that you can use Diffit. So there are tabs right in the center of the page. Literally everything: books, an article, text, or vocabulary list. These are your options to get these resources. Literally everything. Why would you need you could look for literally everything. Maybe you need some supplemental materials. Maybe you have a project-based learning idea and you don't have enough materials. Maybe the class you're teaching doesn't have an adopted curriculum. So Diffit is saying you can create literally anything. And so I'm going to start by saying, in number 1, I'm going to just enter a topic. And so I'm going to use the carbon cycle. And below that, I could align it to the standards. I can customize it by reading level. And I think that this is a 6th grade standard, leaving it in English language and leaving it informational text. And when I click generate resources, these are all of the elements that you get. So you get a suggested image, which gives you more to choose from. You get an adapted reading passage, a summary, key vocabulary words, multiple choice questions, short answer questions, and open-ended prompts. You get the same set of resources for every content resource that you generate. And so up at the top, you could change this grade level. You could translate it. You can print just this. You can export this to a form, or you could export this to a doc. You can customize all of these resources, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But before we go on, I want you to kind of stop right here. This is AI generated content. And because it is, we never suggest that you take this and use it just without editing it, without reviewing it. So as with all AI generated content, we want you to check it for accuracy. You are the knowledgeable person. This is your content. You need to read over it, check it for accuracy, check it for bias. It does show you the sources of where this content came from. So you can go to those sources and check those out. You can edit these sources as well, and we'll get into that in just a little bit too. But back to checking your AI content. Check for ethical and copyright considerations. Make sure it aligns with your learning standards and your goals. And you'll be able to make any edits that you need to be able to use this resource. And I always consider anything AI generated my first draft. So I know that I am not going to just take this and use it without looking over it, customizing it, making it my own, and making sure that it is correct. So if we want to generate literally anything, that is from that first tab, you can go back to the dashboard by hitting Start New. And next to literally anything is books. And I will share with you that I usually create my presentations for these virtual academies a couple of weeks before. I did work on it last week, and I always review it the day before. So yesterday afternoon, I'm reviewing, and this tab is new. So very quickly, all of your internet-based resources can change. So you can now get ready resources for a book. And so I'm going to use for this one, Charlotte's Web, and that's generally read in the 3rd grade. Not changing any, this is fictional, so I can say it's a fictional text. And I want to generate resources. But before it generates, yesterday it asked me for which chapters. So I guess that this was for the whole book. But yesterday I was able to just select one chapter at a time, or maybe 2 chapters at a time. So you would not have to generate for the entire book. But you get the same set of resources, the same elements. You get an adapted reading passage, a summary, key vocabulary words, multiple choice, short answer, and open-ended prompts. And again, you can print them. You can export it to forms or a doc. Okay. So let's hit Start New. You can also use information from an article or a YouTube link. I have a YouTube link already ready. And so it's called A Crash Course About American History. So you can just paste your link in. Again, I could align it to standards. A reading level, I'm going to go up 8th grade on this one. I'm not sure if that's right. And then I'll choose Generate Resources. All right, so this is a YouTube video. Again, images that you can customize, and the same elements and the same options for how you can use these resources. And again, always emphasize, it is AI generated, so make sure that you go through it first. You can do the same thing here with an article. So you would just paste in an article link. You can also do the same thing with text or a PDF. So maybe it's something that you have used in the past and all you have is a PDF. You can upload the PDF. You can also use a vocabulary list. And so we will do a vocabulary list. This is biomes. So I have a list of 10 words. This is a 7th grade standard biomes. And I will say with these vocabulary words, let's generate some resources. And the thing that's different about the vocabulary resources is there's no suggested picture. So you will have to either upload a picture of your own, or you can search a Google search for a picture that you would like to use. And I'll just select one, and that becomes my photo. But again, even with the vocabulary, you get those same key elements for the resource set. So when would you use the rest of these? So we talked about, you know, when you might use literally everything, but when would you use like a video and article? So maybe you found the perfect video, maybe you found the perfect article. You can immediately get some supporting resources for this content and some activities, and then you can adapt those and add to them if you need to. So basically, again, it's your first draft, and it's a really good start for you. You know, sometimes part of our problem in lesson planning is just getting that first start. And so this would give you a good base then to grow on.
One of the things I'd like to jump in and say about the different tabs and choosing your grade levels is just from a science of reading lens, make sure that you are choosing the grade level that you teach, or, you know, if you teach multiple grade levels, choosing close to the grade level that you teach, because we do not want to take the content down grade levels unless it's part of scaffolding toward another text. So if you teach 6th graders and they're struggling readers, you don't want to come to Diffit and put in 2nd grade reading level and think, oh, great, this is text that they can access, because then they're only reading 2nd grade level things. And again, we want them to be reading, you know, at their grade level. So make sure that you're choosing your grade level there.
Katie, I appreciate that, because when I first started working on using Diffit for one of the virtual academies, I asked Katie, you know, would you walk me through this? Would you walk me through the science of reading? So I wanted to be able to tell each of you the correct way to use this resource. And so I think, you know, what she is sharing is a valuable tool it was for me, because I didn't realize that. So Katie, again, is going to talk about the science of reading. But before we do that, I want to show you how you can edit each of these to make it your own. So one of the things that I want to show you right here is all of the things that I've created in this session tonight are under my resources. So everything that you've created will stay under your resources. And of course, you can always click on one and you can delete it or you can share it. Even if you change a reading level or you change a grade level, it will still keep your original and it'll generate another one. So you're always going to have the resources that you've created under the tab My Resources. So I'm going to go back to the very first one, the carbon cycle. And I'm going to show you how you can customize each one of these. So the selected image, if you want to customize, you just kind of hover over these, and you would just click on the one that you wanted and it will change it. You also have the option of searching or uploading if none of those are what you like. And you can also choose to say, if you scroll to the very bottom, you can choose to say no image. And so that's how you would remove the image. For the reading passage, you can actually just go in and adjust the text. You can make the text length shorter, longer, custom. It will, and then you can give it the option of regenerating your vocabulary questions and summary. Other ways you can adjust the text, you can add and remove content, change the writing style, change the tense. You can physically just hit the edit button and then you can go in and edit it. So you found something that you feel like you could explain in a better way. You can go in, it's just like a word processor. You can go in and make editing changes. You can copy anything from here. And then under your sources, so here are the sources that Diffit used to generate this material. And so you've got 5 sources. if you look at them, there may be something glaring in there to you that you just don't like. Like maybe you don't, I looked at one the other day and it had Wikipedia, and for a long time there were people who were anti-Wikipedia, so they didn't want any of their content coming from Wikipedia. So if there's something, a source that you do not want to use, you can say edit the sources, and then you would just uncheck what you didn't want to be generated. And then you can also add a source. So maybe you have a textbook that you want that source aligned in there, or another article. So you can edit, change, delete any of your sources, and then you can say to regenerate it if you'd like. And then your summary is the same. You can physically click the edit button. You can add to the summary. You can add wording in, delete wording, making it yours. The key vocabulary words, you can add more. Choose a source, add your own words, or pull keywords from the text, and it will add those. You can add images to your vocabulary. Again, these would be ones that you would have to search for, but you could put an image with each one of your vocabulary words. And again, you can just go in and edit. Maybe you want to change the example sentence. Maybe you have example sentences that you've used in the past. You can delete these manually if you like. So all of those, again, can be edited. Your multiple choice and your short answer questions are also editable. You can add questions. You can add questions by your standards. You can add in literacy skills or depth of knowledge levels, and you can decide how many questions that you would like to add. You can get those questions, and again, you can edit those. So lots of editing ability. You can also show the answers. Again, making sure that you are double checking. This is your draft. You can double check and make sure they are the correct answers. The short answer and the multiple choice questions are editable as far as adding more. The open-ended prompts are not as easy. There's no more custom. You can add prompts, but you can't custom them. Diffit will generate them for you. You can decide how many more. And the reason being for that, on the open-ended prompts, they are all DOK level 4 for extended learning. And so we don't have the ability to add those prompts. They will add them for you, and then you can edit them or change them. So that's the customization, and they're all very similar. So I'm going to flip back here to the slides, and Katie is now going to share with you
Laurel, I am so excited about this resource. I've been playing around with it at work a little bit, but having Laurel walk me through it's really nice. I found out some things I didn't know from just clicking around myself. One of the things that, and I think she's going to show you here in a minute, are some activities that you can do with each, with all of the content that you build. And one of the things I just want to say about science of reading is to make sure that you're going beyond that worksheet. Of course you all are. I know many of the educators in here, and I know you're fabulous educators. So just a reminder to go beyond the worksheet, try that gradual release model. One of the things we know about structured literacy practices is that we need to teach explicitly and systematically. So you're going to use that I do, we do, you do gradual release model. And remember that teaching is more than just assigning, and your guidance makes all the difference. So one of my favorite researchers, science of reading researchers, his name is Tim Shanahan. He came out with an article. It's getting a little bit older now. It's been a couple years. It's been out a couple years. It's about test prep. And in this article, he talks about 5 things that you can do with your students to kind of get them ready for that Ohio State test that happens at the end of the year. And I really appreciate the 4th and the 5th one. Have students explain their answers and provide text evidence supporting their claim, and engage students in writing about text, not just replying to multiple choice questions. And these are recommendations that can really be applied across all content areas, across all grade levels. And when Laurel and I were talking about this professional learning session, I thought these fit in really well with the activities that Diffit generates, because it forces kids to do some of these things that he says are best practices. So for example, this is from Diffit. It's an answer and explain, and it's really not anything that you probably haven't already thought of as a classroom teacher. But I was in the classroom for 16 years, and this was still like, wow, this would have been a really great tool for me. So basically, you would give your students a reading passage, and then you would give them a set of multiple choice questions. And then you would have them pick, of course, the multiple choice answer that they feel is the best, which is what we normally do. But Diffit forces them to explain, why did you pick that answer? And that is directly on the worksheet, which is really cool, because again, sometimes high school kids, you can tell them, or middle school kids, you can say, I want you to explain your answer. But if you don't have that space specifically dedicated for that, they may or may not do it. So it's kind of nice. Diffit has that space there for them to explain why they picked that answer. And you can even tell your students, I also want you to explain why you didn't pick certain answers. And then you can even take that a step further. So when we're talking about taking it off of pulling it off of the page, there are some other things that we can do. If we think about that recommendation that they should explain their answers, and we think about that we do as a part of the gradual release model, we can develop some engaging and collaborative ways for students to discuss their answers and explanations. So after they do this, after they've done that individually, they've chosen a multiple choice answer, they've explained in the column to the right, then you can have them group up and do some engagement. So you could have them do some speed dating, where they're sitting across from somebody telling them, explaining, I chose B because. You could have them do chalk talk, which is basically a silent version of speed dating, where they are writing on like butcher paper or poster boards or large sticky notes, and they're able to read each other's explanations there. I really like the prove me wrong protocol. That's one where, they can kind of debate the right answers. And then the human bar graph is simply just having them line up, everybody who thinks A is going to line up here, B here, C here, D here. And then, of course, they would engage in conversation about, who has the right answer and why. And when you see these slides, those are links for the different protocols if you want to try any of those activities. So kind of the nice thing about Diffit is you can really combine it with some other instructional strategies to strengthen what's already given to you.
Okay, so what I am hearing is, what we'd like for you to get out of this is, don't just stop at the worksheet. Take some of those instructional strategies and build out from there. So once again, taking what you've, oh, I was sharing the wrong tab, taking what you have generated in Diffit and just extending it. So Katie, that was great. I appreciate that. Thank you. So there is another part of Diffit called activities. And so that's what Katie and I just shared with you. That was a particular activity that changes the way a student might interact with the resources that you just created. So activities is a separate page. And if you look across those tabs, there's a favorite. So if you start using this, you can heart your favorite ones, custom ones, basics. Then it kind of breaks out in, are you doing something that you need to summarize learning, vocabulary, reading strategies, writing strategies, text analysis, collaboration, critical thinking. There are some really, really, really good activities in here. And I think Katie was surprised at some of the good activities. And so the activity that we had selected to show you was the answer. Katie, help. What was
Answer and explain.
Answer and explain. Answer and explain. And all of those activities, they're searchable. You can look through them. There's a bubble map, and you would just, here's a Google form. Let me see if I can find, if I can, the answer and explain original. Did not. Okay, we will just pick one then. We'll pick a vocabulary one. So vocabulary practice, the Frayer model. We'll just look at that one. So again, it gives you all kinds of templates that you can work with. And it gives you those boxes that Katie talked about, having your students write their responses in it. You can customize this as well. You can add content, you can delete content, and then you can share this with your students. Oops, let me get back to that. It tells you what format it's in. It's in slides, a PowerPoint. It could be a PDF. My activities that I had already done. This was a moment in time, and adding content. That's where you would go back in and add generate some new resources. But I wanted to show you how you shared it. Go back here. Funny how you do this and then you can't see what exactly it is. Let me go back to the slide that shows that. All right, so this is the slide that shows you. I'm not sure how I can't get there right now, but you can export any of those activities. They can be sized for printing. They can be assigned to your Google Classroom. You can export them as slides, docs, PowerPoints, or PDFs. And if you're assigning it to Google Classroom, you would select make a copy for each student, and that way they would have their own copy. And each slide that you share in that method, the slides are set up for each student to type in. So those were your options. I wish I could get to it quickly, but I know you don't want to see me fumble around. So you can share in that method. Those activities are worth looking at, even if you would decide not, maybe not to use the generate your resources, but you can always use those activities in another way. There's just some really good things in there. And so back to our slides. Diffit has kind of culminated some activities for each content level or content area. And so if you need activities for vocabulary, some of the ones are activities are some drag and drop slides. They have matching, they have the Frayer model, which we saw. Dividing them very nicely. For collaboration, think, pair, share. That's one I used to use a lot. Discussion packets, partner discussions, partner slide decks. So you can take a look at these: constructed response, ACE, racer, peel, graphic organizers, all that can be customized within Diffit. And then it even breaks it down into what's good for an elementary classroom, vocabulary building, writing with evidence, adapt videos and articles to meet all the needs of your learners. History classroom, how could a history teacher use this? Primary source analysis, adapting readings, vocabulary activities. I know for content area classrooms, vocabulary activities are more difficult because they consider them more like an ELA responsibility. So this is where a history, social studies teacher could get some vocabulary activities. ELA, text analysis, adaptive readings, vocabulary, critical thinking, create high interest articles to practice skills, group discussion and partner work. Science, again, vocabulary, more resources, writing with evidence. So take a look at, maybe something for your content area. There's math. Math is a difficult one too, to try to pull in some of that science of reading activities. And then there's some partners with Diffit. This partner is Matt Miller, and he has a company, a website, and he produces a lot of books. He was a Spanish teacher, Rebecca, and didn't have any content. So he developed the website Ditch That Textbook. And he came up with his own ideas and his own activities without a textbook. And he has some really cool things, but he's partnered with Diffit. His activities are in the activity library as well under Ditch That Textbook. And there are a couple other partners that Diffit has used. So a lot of educators are finding that this is a good website and are wanting to share their own activities with Diffit. Also in the slides, there's just a couple of cheat sheets. I think it's pretty user friendly. At this point, do you have any questions for me or Katie regarding Diffit? Just unmute and let us know.
So Laurel, there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
It says, can students work on the slides we send online? If we were like, can we use it on virtual teaching days with a group so they can edit on it?
When you assign on Google Classroom, you make a copy for each student. But in this year, Google has given, in Classroom, you have the ability to create groups. So if you're referring to that, yes, you could assign that group that activity, if that's what you're asking.
If you're old school, you can also print these things too. I know this is a tech, this is a tech PD session, but you can, if you have students that, they just work a little bit better. These are things that you can customize and then print as well.
Just because this is a tech academy, I have used technology, throughout my whole career. I'm not afraid of technology. I actually, my first job was teaching typing on a typewriter. And so I've had to jump in and just be brave and use what's given to me. But I will be the first one to tell you, don't use technology just to be using technology. Make sure it fits your need. And yes, there are great pencil paper activities out there. So yes, Katie is correct. You can print any of these and use them as pencil and paper. You may have somebody who's not allowed on their Chromebook. You can do all of those things. So yes. Any other questions? This was a quick one tonight. So I always let you know what's coming next. So March 11th from 4 to 5 is Google Sheets Basics. So we'll do everything from creating a sheet to analyzing data, features of sheets that will allow you to understand them a little bit better. This was a requested one. Many people requested this, so hopefully it will be a good one for you. You can always register now, or it will come out in the March Gallaudet and ESC newsletter. And so that's up to you.
And if you see my face at that one, I am there as a learner.
I love Google Sheets. And again, we love your feedback. So there's our exit survey. I will put that in the chat. We do like your feedback. It helps us plan for the next one. If you are choosing to take Google Sheets, there is a question in the surveys or something in particular that is just, you are really wanting to learn about on Google Sheets, and I can try to incorporate that. Always excited to hear if there's something in here that you can use. So please share that in your exit survey. Katie, thank you for sharing with us. And again, I always thank each of you for, being here with us. I know it's after school, after a long, lovely weekend. So I appreciate you being here as well.